Welcome to this beautiful fall morning, everyone. If this is your first time here or your 101st time here, we are glad you are here. This community is what it is because of your presence. So welcome. Welcome to this space of love, support, justice, compassion, fellowship, and worship. We enter this relationship of community and fellowship with the desire to find connection and togetherness across generations. In the words of Lee Ongiri, we are weavers of one story. Here we are, together, each facing our different human tasks, or maybe the same central one, to embrace the lessons life delivers, to discern and respond as we grow, to refuse harm and cherish flourishing. May we know ourselves as vessels of infinite possibility, holders of each other's heartaches and tales of joy alike, weavers of one story in which we each have a part. My name is Sarah Walker, and I'm a member of the board here at QUUF. As we gather, I acknowledge that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the S'Klallam and Chimicum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our Indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain these homelands. If you're visiting today, I offer you a special welcome and invite you to join us for refreshments and conversation in the fellowship hall after the service. We have a newcomers table near the patio doors where our greeters are ready to answer any questions you might have. Welcome to you all this morning. We're glad you're here. I have some announcements. Our Housing Action Team, formerly called the Affordable Housing Action Group, invites you to join the community in preparing dinner for the guests at the emergency shelter. Our first week is coming up fast. Please visit the round table in the fellowship hall to learn more, as well as the weekly update on our website. And now, here is Morris Nibbler with exciting news about the auction.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Morris Nibbler, and I'm here to tell you about some exciting news. So, we are about ready to launch this year's auction, and the theme is Around the World. So we're going to have a lot of fun, and in the meantime, we're going to support QUUF. So we're going to have online bidding for a week, and we'll also have a grand round-the-world auction event on Friday, November the 15th. So mark it on your calendar, November the 15th. We'll have an epic slideshow at that time filled with friendly faces that night. So you bet. So we want to get your face up on the projection. Pick one of your favorite ones and send it in to selfie@quuuf.org. Now the deadline is October the 27th. So another little deadline, mark on your calendar to send that selfie in before then. Now I was asked to give you some donation ideas. So here we go. Cup your ears now and listen up. Listen up. Here's some ideas. You could support a wonderful local business by donating a gift certificate. Have you seen the cheese at Pont de Amour? And we have lots of restaurants that serve food from around the world. And they're not just little holes in the wall either. They're nice places. So that's remembered. How about hosting an experience, a field trip, a favorite place, or a picnic at Fort Worden, or maybe the Maritime Center, or a party? People love parties. How about a junior cheesecake party, or a New Year's Eve party, or a pizza, or a storytelling? It's endless what we could donate. Also, do you have a skill or a talent that you would like to share? Maybe knitting, painting, maybe a bird walk, and identify all those sounds out there for someone. So, are you also, probably like me, always nice to have something to nibble on? So, you could offer cookies, a pie, a cake. The possibilities are endless. So I hope I've inspired you. Now get your thinking caps on. You can pick up one of the donation forms by going to the Friday update, or you can also get them on the website, or you can pick them up just outside the office there on the bulletin board. They are due now, remember, on October the 27th. So I predict we'll have a super successful auction. We won't just squeak by. All right. Okay, stay tuned. And next week, my cousin, Doris Nibbler, will be here to update you with the exciting updates of the auction. Thank you.
Thank you, Morris. We were lucky to book Morris and his 5 cousins, Horace, Boris, Doris, Norris, and Bree, to be our mascots this year. So, let us settle our minds and calm our hearts.
So the helper candle didn't get lit, so you're going to have to light a match. Just not yet. Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning. There we go. Now I've got a voice. Where are we? There we are. Our opening words today are by my colleague, Wayne Arneson. From our separate paths, our separate lives, from different paths, we have come. From distinct joys and private sorrows, we have come. From unique insights and personal convictions, we have come. We have come and we are here to make a common life at the crossroads of our paths, to expand our joys and to share our burdens and our sorrows, to deepen our insights and to announce our convictions. We are here and we have come to weave the threads of our lives into the whole cloth of our community. In worship together, we celebrate the weaving we create. It is good to be together this morning. Will you join me in the chalice lighting words? While we get our helper candle lit. Maybe. There we go. Yeah. Please join me. We kindle this flame as a symbol of the light we would keep glowing in our lives, of appreciation for those who differ, loving kindness for those who suffer, esteem for all who remind us of our heritage and our calling as agents of the Most High. Let's join in singing our opening song. It's number 34, Though I May Speak. Please rise as you are able.
Though I may speak with bravest fire and have not gift to all inspire and have not moved my words of faith, as sounding brass and hopeless game, though I may give all my prayers, each giving soul my love profess, but have not lived my love within. The prophet soon turns strangely dim. Come, Spirit, come, our hearts control, our spirits want to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed. By this we worship and are free.
I have this slightly sinking feeling that we have few of our younger all ages people in the room, but any of them that are around are welcome to come forward. This is bothering me. Hang on just a sec. Yes, please come up. Yay, thank you guys. Whew. John Collins, are you being a person of all ages? Bless your heart. Oh, goodness, how you guys doing today? You okay? Yeah, good, good. I'm glad to hear that. Oh, and David Alvarez, look at you guys. Take your usual seat, isn't it? Yeah. So I have a story. It's called There's a Wall, the wall in the middle of the book. And as you all probably have already figured out, I love children's books. So there is a wall in the middle of the book. And it's a good thing. The wall protects this side of the book from the other side of the book. It looks a little dangerous, doesn't it? Do you think? This side of the book is safe. The other side is not. But the most dangerous thing on the other side of the book is the ogre. He looks a little unpleasant, doesn't he? Yeah, you think? If the ogre ever caught me, he'd eat me up. That's why I'm glad there's a wall in the middle of the book and that I'm on this side of it. I don't know, it looks a little like it might be a little dangerous on that side too, don't you think? Sometimes we don't figure these things out until too late, huh? Wait a second, what's going on? This is not supposed to happen on this side of the wall. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, what do you think? Let's see what happens. Oh, wow, thank you so much. Oh no, I'm on the other side of the book. And you're the ogre who's going to eat me up. Ah! Ha, ha, ha. I'm actually a nice ogre, and this side of the book is fantastic. Come on, I'll show you around. Huh. Hey, ogre, wait for me. That other side of the wall wasn't so bad, huh? Didn't need protecting so much. It's a good thing to remember sometimes that we don't know everything that we don't know. And that's our story for today. I would invite those of you who are standing on the aisle to rise and form an arch, and let's sing everybody back out.
We pause for a time of generosity and receive an offering, which today goes to For the Love of a Child. I invite Lisa Condren to tell us about it. No? Are you both coming up?
Well, I will just have to project my voice in.
I'm Lisa Condren, and I'm a member here, and I'm also the principal of Salish Coast Elementary, and I was reached out to about having the congregation contribute to our Love of the Child Fund, and it's a really important fund for us because half of our students and families, more than half, struggle with poverty. And as a public institution, we can't give away taxpayer money. So when students need things like extra food, extra clothing, shoes, eyeglasses, these generous donations from the community really help us get our students the things we need. And without it, it would be so hard on our students and families to not be able to get these things they need so much, and then also heartbreaking for us as a school to see toes poking out of shoes and not being able to do anything about it. So we're very grateful for any donations today to help support our students and our community. Thank you.
Please join me in the offering words. This fellowship is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it.
So y'all probably have figured out that I'm a fan of fun facts. So in speaking about Unitarianism today, I just want to note, I think, my memory is that Bela Bartok, composer of the music that we just heard, that delightful music, I think we claim him as a Unitarian. I believe that's the case. Thank you. We do, yeah. So, and the other fun fact is that this is Roumanian folk dances, and Romania is where Transylvania, one of the first places to have Unitarianism, or actually the only place where Unitarianism has been the state religion, back in the something centuries. I'm bad at remembering dates, but a long time ago. Anyhow, just there could not have been a more apt piece of music for today. Look at you all. We didn't even plan it. All right, friends. All right, enough of that. Okay. It's time, the time that we set aside in the service to share joys and sorrows. And recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a small fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life, we begin each week by placing a stone that addresses those wider joys and sorrows. Today our stone is placed remembering Matthew Shepard, who died on October 12th, 1998, after he was abducted and then beaten by two young men. a young gay man. He was then abandoned, tied to a fence near Laramie, Wyoming. In the congregation, I want to start with just a correction from last week. Last week, our worship leader, Joseph Bednarik, misspoke a sorrow that he had been handed late as he was about to get into the pulpit. And so we place a stone this week to acknowledge both the mistake and to share that Robert and Sharon Schlintner's daughter died suddenly last week. We hold them and their whole family in our hearts and apologize for the mistake. And Bruce Z. shares, and I quote him here, "The joy for Brenda and me is that we will be close to our families who live in New England and in the Mid-Atlantic states. The sorrow is that we will leave behind such dear friends, both within the QUUF community as well as the greater Port Townsend area. Thank you to all of you who have assisted and supported us here at QUUF." And we place a final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows that I've shared and those that are unexpressed, but no less important. Thank you. Let's take a nice collective breath. Just nice inhale. And take a few moments for quiet and reflection, meditation, prayer, whatever is most your custom. We'll start with these words and then have a time of stillness together. Spirit of love and life, spark of the most holy, may we see you in all. You are present in our questioning, in our longings, and in the answers we find. You are present in the search, you, our companion, urging us to explore. You are present in each person we meet, if we might rightly look to see your light in her eyes, in his longings, no matter if they look like us or think like us. May we remember that each one bears your spark. You are present even in each mistake, each misstep, each time we get it all wrong. May we be reminded that we are ever on a journey and that the point is to explore, that we share in our searching with all who live, and that with each step we learn, if we only pay attention. May we know that you are ever with us, Spirit of love, Spirit of life. Let us pause in stillness. Amen. Our first reading today comes from the Introduction to a History of Unitarianism, Volume 1, Socinianism and Its Antecedents by Earl Morse Wilbur. This is a volume that was published in 1945 and remains the more or less the definitive text of Unitarian history up until it was published, up into the 1940s. In the introduction, Wilbur says, "It is intended here to present not so much a history of a particular sect or form of Christian doctrine, as to consider broadly the development of a movement fundamentally characterized instead by its steadfast and increasing devotion to these three leading principles. First, total mental freedom in religion rather than bondage to creeds or confessions. Second, the unrestricted use of reason in religion rather than reliance on external authority or past tradition. Third, generous tolerance of differing religious views and usages rather than uniformity in doctrine, worship, or polity. For Unitarianism has throughout its whole course strenuously resisted any attempt at dogmatic fixity, has made reason its ultimate court of appeal, and has normally been hospitable to changes and restatements in its forms of thought, being at all times more concerned with the underlying spirit of Christianity in its application to situations of practical life than with intellectual formulations of Christian thought."
Next is called Our Faith by Rosemary Bray McNatt. There have always been people of faith like us. We are the people who sought a religion marked by freedom and reason and acceptance, in addition to faith and hope and love. Our forebears are martyrs who died for religious freedom, ministers who preached that no one is damned to hell or outside the reach of divine love. Thinkers who taught us that no spiritual tradition has a monopoly on wisdom, and activists who focused our attention on bettering the world rather than placing our hope in the afterlife. We stand in a grand and glorious stream of faith, always flowing towards freedom, justice, and love in the world.
So a couple of program notes before I begin my sermon proper today. There's a lot of history in today's sermon, and I want to begin by acknowledging that our Unitarian ancestors were among those who invaded this continent and were responsible for the displacement and genocide of Native people that occurred in New England and beyond. I tell this history recognizing that the narrative of the brave settlers seeking freedom omits and makes invisible the consequences of that European invasion of this continent. And so I invite you to hold with me that tension and not forget that the history is companion to the one that I'll be relating today. And the second program note is to say that as a person who spent most of her life finding history, mostly dull and irrelevant. Anybody out there with me? That's occasionally, yeah. So it was when I was preparing to travel to Transylvania to visit the Unitarian churches there that I got completely captured by our history and became one of those people who gets excited upon, as you have discovered, finding a fun historical fact or a thread of events that opens up a perspective on something that's happening now. I can only hope that those of you who find history a bit of a yawn, I know you're out there, can at least appreciate the enthusiasm that I have discovered about history. So onward we go. But I want to start back when I was a kid growing up as a Unitarian Universalist. You see, I spent a lot of time being really puzzled about what it meant to be a Unitarian Universalist. There was this guessing game that adults played with us when we were kids. I would ask someone, for example, a RE teacher, somebody, I would say, "What's God?" And the adult, maybe my mother, often a Sunday school teacher, would smile and say, "What do you think God is?" Right? Am I right? Kathy, am I right? Yeah? Okay. The guessing game would begin. God is Jesus. Oh. And what else do you think God is? Am I right? I mean, really, people. Sooner or later, I would stumble on an answer that met their idea of what God was, or at least what they thought I might think God actually might be. And at that moment, a smile would break out on their faces, and they'd congratulate me on my wisdom. Now, that dynamic, that guessing game, came from the idea that they wanted each of us to have our own experience of the universe, to find the language that made most sense to us. A lot of it goes back to Sophia Lyon-Fahs, the groundbreaking religious educator and later minister, who worried in her own words that the heavy hand of tradition would close off a child's mind and their imagination and skew their ability to describe and explore the experiences of the divine. I have to say it always left me a little nervous about asking about beliefs, and I lost faith and totally lost about how to talk about my faith community, much less my own growing faith. I got a little better at it as I grew, but it wasn't until I stepped into my first Unitarian Universalist history class in my first quarter in seminary that I really started to grasp that fuller picture. It was that paragraph in Wilbur's Comprehensive History of Unitarianism that gave me my first real connection to the dynamic that made Unitarianism what it was. And I'll tell you, I had a memory of that passage, and I was like, I'm not sure I'll ever be able to find it. And I actually asked my colleagues on Facebook, I was like, does anybody have that passage, where Wilbur says blah, blah, blah? And they pointed me various places, but it wasn't where I wanted. So I pulled the book off the shelf thinking, yeah, right, you're going to find it. Yeah. And because it's a big book. Bless 1980s me, I had highlighted it and found it like that. So anyhow, Yeah, so that paragraph gave me my first real connection to the dynamics that made Unitarianism what it was, and I'll note my love affair with Universalism came a little bit later. Back in 1945, Wilbur published this history of Unitarianism, and those three words, freedom, reason, and tolerance, became a meaningful shorthand for our way in religion. It's worth remembering that, when he was writing this, Unitarianism overall had a stronger connection to Christianity, as is evidenced by his language in that passage I read. The Humanist Manifesto, written by two Unitarian ministers and with roughly half of the signers Unitarians, had been published in 1933, and while it was gaining strength in both Unitarianism and the wider culture, it wasn't as pervasive as it is now, or indeed as much as it was as I was growing up in the church back in the 1960s. I would suspect that most folks who associated with Unitarian congregations back in the 1940s when he was writing would have called themselves Christian, even if their beliefs were not what we associate with Christianity today. So what does it mean that these three words describe the history and practices of Unitarianism? For us in the American context, freedom starts when the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth. As that group of settlers came to this continent not to create a home for religious freedom as we sometimes talk about it, they came, if you will, for selfish motives. They were escaping the strong arm of the established church in England. Before they landed here, they all agreed to a set of principles that they would operate on in their settlement that became known as the Cambridge Platform. Instead of providing a set of necessary beliefs, there was no creed required. They all agreed how they would be with one another. They created a covenant to guide them in all their relations. There was to be no scrutiny of theology, no policing of how a minister or individual read and interpreted the scriptures, no orthodoxy to impose. And the settlers went ahead as they settled and recreated what had been their practice in England without all the liturgy and the creeds. See, each community built a church and supported it. Throughout New England, if you traveled there, you'll see the equivalent of the parish church on every village green. These churches were supported by the local government, right? That is, the local government paid for the minister and the other costs of running the church. And this practice continued in Massachusetts until 1833, when the state stopped financing local churches. But that huge part of our history, right? The church was supported entirely by tax dollars. When the American version of Unitarianism came into being, back in those days, freedom of belief was absolutely built into it, and it continued to be central to our faith community. Even today, you know this, we are not required to ascribe to any particular belief, far from the reduction that you hear sometimes that we can believe whatever we want. Our faith community invites us to identify what we each find to be true and helpful in our search for truth and meaning. Our historic commitment to reason, again, in the Unitarian context, mostly played out most clearly in the scholarly controversy that emerged in the 19th century at Harvard University. The divinity school there was literally the training ground for all ministers and had been since its founding. The study of the Bible was central to the training of ministers, and around the turn of the century, a literary movement called source criticism started being applied to the Bible. Now, if you've done any study of the Bible, if you know anything about it, you should be aware that it is a cobbled together document that drew upon a variety of ancient sources. What scholars started noticing in their studies was that there were some particular threads and similarities of language used or the focus of passages. For example, there are portions of the Hebrew Bible, often called the Old Testament, that are lists of rules that must be followed. Scholars identified that these lists shared characteristics that led them to believe that they came from a common source. Other sections describe priestly functions or use the term Yahweh for God, so there are ways to determine where all these different parts came from. Conservatives in the established churches believed that this was an attack on the Holy Scriptures. They denied that it denied the unity of the Bible, and it called into question its divine inspiration. Liberals eagerly adopted this kind of study, excited by what they might learn. The controversy came to a head when a liberal scholar was appointed to teach the Bible at Harvard Divinity School, and a schism erupted. What united the liberals was both a willingness to grow and change in their understanding when new information was discovered, and in a curiosity about the nature of religion overall. And it wasn't just biblical scholarship, just in biblical scholarship. It is perhaps another characteristic of our faith that we want to go wider than that. For example, Unitarian ministers like Ralph Waldo Emerson around this same time found resonances in the scriptures of other faith traditions and sought to discover meaning outside the narrow bounds of the Christianity of their day. Exploration and discovery was not bounded by how it always had been, by that heavy hand of tradition. And third, tolerance has always been a part of our Unitarian heritage. In some good measure, given freedom and reason, a healthy capacity for tolerance is absolutely necessary. Without a definitive statement of faith that both affirms and limits our religious explorations and beliefs, we have to continue to learn how to respect each other's discoveries and understandings. I'll note that I don't believe we're actually distinct in this, as we might think we are. In any congregation, in any gathering of people, there are vast differences between what people believe. What makes us different, I think, is the explicit recognition that the content of our beliefs will vary widely from person to person, and that we don't demand any particular ascription to a dogma or doctrine. Indeed, we have no dogma or doctrine. Unitarians had shared understandings, shared values, shared affirmations, but there's nothing in our history that demands that we all agree, and a dang good thing, isn't it? Right, that was a laugh line, yeah. But I'll say, there are limits to what it means to be tolerant. It isn't that anything goes in a congregation, that we are required to accept any and all of the ideas or beliefs that our individual members may hold. To be tolerant is to recognize that none of us holds a final and unquestionable truth, but it does not mean that all ideas are of equal truth and worth. Tolerance is a social contract. It means that we are willing to live with disagreements and differences of perspective. The author Robert Jones Jr., who used to post on social media as son of Baldwin, and sometimes this quote is ascribed to Baldwin, but it's actually from this other guy, he said, he articulated for me the clear description of the limits of tolerance. He wrote, "We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist. We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist. There are beliefs that I will not tolerate because they demean and injure others. We all know this. Not every idea or understanding is worthy of our acceptance, and the world is filled with ideas and passionately held understandings that do real harm. You need only look at the current presidential race to understand how dangerous it would be to be tolerant of any and all ideas. Freedom, reason, and tolerance are the words that Earl Morse Wilbur identified to sum up our Unitarian heritage back in 1945, and they are still words that work for us these 80 years later. They are companions to the word that our Universalist tradition brings to our wider movement, the Universalist word love. In all we do, in all our explorations and reflections, in our articulations of what is most true and meaningful, we have to keep love at the center. It is what centers us in relationship. It's what bids us to be mindful of the longings for peace and justice and compassion in the world and in our communities and in our congregations. So, my friends, let us continue to employ all of these threads of our tradition: freedom to explore and discover, reason to keep us honestly understanding, tolerance when it is needed, and always and ever, love for each other. May it be so with us all. Let's sing. Our hymn is Sing Out Praises. It's number 295 in the Gray Book if you want to follow along. Our closing words by Michael Leduc. Let us go in peace, one with another, our eyes on the future, our feet planted firmly on the path to tomorrow. all the while being present with those around us, recognizing the blessings found in our hearts and minds, in the sharing, dreaming, hoping, and just plain being. One with another, let us all go in peace. Amen, and blessed be. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.